Welcome to Outsourcing 2.0, a video podcast series powered by SupportNinja. I'm your host, Jack Malaco. Significant changes have already begun to happen over the course of this year. We are, of course, already in June as the recording of this episode, but in the outsourcing industry, we do expect more right around the corner. And with that in mind, we have with us today the CEO of SupportNinja, Craig Chrysler, to tell us a little bit more about a survey that we actually conducted in partnership with CMS Wire to interview over 480 industry leaders about outsourcing and their organizations. Craig, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I love the shirt, Jack.
We're matching the Hawaiian shirt energy today. Like I was joking earlier, it's almost like little mini me. Eventually, I'm going to have to start putting some stuff up behind me so that we can really start to match each other. And then at a certain point, we'll just be indecipherable. But anyway, Craig, so today we're talking about industry trends. We recently did a survey of over 480 industry leaders. And from that, we discovered 5 trends that are emerging in the outsourcing industry over the course of 2024. Now, of course, we're already in June of 2024 as of the recording of this episode, so some of these are already starting to come to fruition, but that still gives us the opportunity to talk about these 5 trends that we really discovered from the results of this survey. So, Craig, why don't we just get into the first one and talk about the first trend that we found?
So the first trend that we're seeing is a healthy but fluid outsourcing market. It's an interesting space to be in right now because it is evolving quite a bit.
What do you mean by that? Elaborate on that. What are we seeing that's meaning that it's healthy but fluid?
Well, what's interesting about it is that outsourcing demand is still growing. Like we still see that it's high demand services that are being required of companies that are growing and scaling and trying to kind of navigate the future. The fluidity of it's really interesting in the sense that there's a lot of movement within the space. There's a lot more people entering and competing within the space. There's a lot of consolidation occurring within the space, and it's really kind of pointing to this fluidity but healthy. So there's a lot of growth, but it's very fluid in this space, right?
They like using outsourcing from what it seems, but it doesn't seem like they really want to stick with one person, or when they go with a provider, they're not exactly set in stone with staying with that provider forever, right?
Absolutely. Additionally, there's really no real loyalty to your outsourcing provider. Most people can switch outsourcing providers very easily. And if they're not satisfied with the services, they'll just hop. And to me, it really points to all kinds of other trends that we're seeing within it in the sense of this is beyond cost saving. So meaning that a lot of people are outsourcing for cost saving benefit, but the traditional outsourcers are struggling and responding to that in some ways because of the fact that you have to elevate the service that you're providing. And as the survey showed, people are not dedicating themselves to a particular outsourcer for any sort of long-term relationship. It really points to the fact that if you're not driving cost savings and value creation, it's really hard to keep clients in this industry.
That is really strange. I have never in my life, and I'm only 29, so it's not that long of a life, but I've never in my life seen an industry that has this kind of relationship between the customer and the client where something will happen where they'll sign on and then really it almost seems like they start looking at a grass is greener on the other side scenario, right? They start looking at, well, maybe that BPO can do this for me and actually bring a bit more value. And it's not necessarily this kind of what you were talking about for traditional outsourcing where people are just going into it and going, yeah, this will be it. We'll just save some money and then we'll be done with it. Let's go into it a little bit further and talk about this second trend that we've noticed from this survey result.
Well, and Jack, you pointed to it a little bit when we were talking about the first trend in the sense of that there's this kind of lack of sticking to it. But you're going to see as a second trend, more one-stop shops for outsourcing, meaning that you have these more integrated relationships with your outsourcing provider that can cover all kinds of areas, content moderation, customer success, data processing, all kinds of different ways in which you can engage with your outsourcing partner. And many times, instead of outsourcers in general, you might have 2 or 3 if you're using it effectively. They don't want to do 2 or 3. Now they want to kind of hone it into one that understands it better.
Why do you think that is?
I think the main thing is that going back to that value question, right? It's that they're looking for an outsourcing provider that's more of a true partner. In so many ways, it's streamlining, meaning that, if I have one partner that I'm working with who's strategically aligned with me, I can streamline my reporting. I can have better communication because I have multiple lines of business with this outsourcing partner. And then by bundling, putting everything under one umbrella as an outsourcing partner, get a bit of cost savings there because now you have this better and deeper relationship with the client. This trend's really important to me, and especially for us here at SupportNinja, in the sense of that if you're ingrained as an outsourcing partner with your client, then you have a more strategic alignment that allows you to really drive value to the organization that you're partnering with. And you can find different solutions to provide to them that will ultimately help that client and drive value for them and their customers.
That's interesting stuff. And it kind of points to the growing trend that seems like there's almost an ask of clients for the BPOs to get into more specialized skills, right? I mean, let's talk about the third trend here, right? The increased demand for specialized skills. What are you seeing with that?
Absolutely. I mean, there's so many ways in which we see it ourselves at Support Ninja a lot, where we have clients coming to us and saying, "Oh, well, I know that you do CX for us, but I need an engineer that can do X, Y, and Z." And gratefully, like that's where we excel is really finding people and talent and putting them to the resource to our clients. But in outsourcing, I think it's a trend that we're starting to see in terms of value creation. It goes back to that value creation thing of clients starting to realize that it's not just what this singular process or this singular CX solution or whatever it is. They're really viewing an outsourcing partner as a means by which they can tap a global pool of talent. And by gaining access to folks who have specialized skills, that can, really build and are strategically aligned with the client. And then the client then knows that, oh, I have this outsourcing partner that can find these great skills and these specialized skills that we're looking for is really important. It also is a little bit of a backlash in terms of the talent shortage that we're having in the US and as well as I would say other Western countries right now. There's a bit of a talent shortage. If you look at what's happening in the AI space, in terms of folks who have data engineering knowledge and data manipulation work and know how the way AI models work, those are really hard to find and very expensive in the US. But there's large swaths of folks internationally that are looking for work that know how to do that kind of stuff. And so that's just like one example of where you see an outsourcing partner kind of stepping in and saying, oh, we can find these kinds of folks for you and be that value partner. And ultimately, too, what's interesting is retaining that specialized talent over time. For an outsourcing partner, our job is to make sure that they stay, right, and grow and get better. But if you actually have to hire them as a client, it's really costly to retain them and engage them and do all the benefits, whereas an outsourcing partner can kind of take that burden off an existing client.
One of the concepts that sort of sticks out to me as you talk about this is it's almost like this shift from one idea to the other, where cost initially was the one thing that everybody seemed to be chasing, right? Sort of a save costs no matter what, right? So that you can just go with the traditional sense and continue to go forward with whatever you're doing. To now more of that value being the main thing that they're seeking out of it and expanding into making a BPO almost a full-fledged partner for everything that they do. And that's actually really interesting. What about specific industries though? Is there anybody that you've noticed that's sort of leading the way on everything that's going forward with the shift towards value in outsourcing?
So the tech companies obviously are leading the way on all of this right now. So like that's our fourth prediction is that tech's going to lead the way to focus on sustainable ROI over growth at all costs. So and you kind of hit it on that growth at all costs. And it's funny, I was just thinking about this today because I saw a LinkedIn post and we were talking about it was a VC and he was talking about, hey, company FTE doesn't equal growth. Traditional measures in the VC world is, revenue growth, expansion of product and, all of those things. That's real growth. And so that kind of mentality, and people are starting to realize this after banging the drum over and over and over again about this, that growth at all costs mindset is great, but it may not be profitable over time. And we see this happening consistently within the industry because we work with a lot of startups at Support Ninja. We work with a lot of innovative tech companies that are building product. That shift towards sustainable growth and that idea that you can build a great product, but it actually has to have something that's valuable to the market and really has a tight ROI on it. This is where it's impacting outsourcing in the sense that in traditional outsourcing, the way in which it works, it's all labor arbitrage. To your point earlier, it's just like, okay, it's going to be cheaper to do this process with an outsourcer. Clients and people who are using outsourcing are realizing that that's not enough. There has to be some value creation in the process. And so tech companies are very attuned to this. I call it the Big Bang Theory approach in the sense of that those guys did not go and run a comic book shop. They actually hired the guy who was running the comic book shop. They outsourced something that was part of what they loved to do because they knew they didn't know how to run a comic book shop. But if you were asking about physics, that's their wheelhouse. So tech companies are much more attuned to that idea of being like, well, where can I get an ROI and ultimately get some cost benefit from it, but actually drive value to the organization as a whole. And this is where I think tech companies think long-term. They just tend to look at things, not just in terms of how do I find a partner that can take this one process, but more like how can I find a partner that will grow and scale with me and be responsive to my needs? And that scalability thing is crucially important in an outsourcing partner. And I'm not talking about, to be clear, for us and for what the way we think the future is for outsourcing and outsourcing 2.0, it's not about an outsourcing partner that will be able to essentially go, oh, okay, I can do 1,000 more FTEs in this different country or something like that. It's not that scalability. It's talking about the scalability of adaptability in teams, meaning that we'll be able to do more for you. We'll be able to drive more value for you as an outsourcing partner than just being able to take on another process. It's that strategic partnership that I think is just crucial in terms of outsourcing in general.
At face value, it just makes the most sense that way, right? It's almost as if you're just paying for a service and sending away your product and going, well, I completely trust them to just do whatever they need to do and just check the boxes, right? Rather than going, how can I make this a meaningful investment for my company, right? And it's interesting that tech companies really are the ones that kind of seem to be leading the way on that. And we're seeing tech companies continue to set trends all throughout this year and last. And that brings us to our final trend prediction that we've kind of seen through these survey results. I mean, it seems like AI is really becoming the big thing within outsourcing as well.
Absolutely. And the trend is that there's an increased focus on AI and outsourcing. The idea that if we're going to use you as an outsourcing partner, you better have some AI in what you're doing. You better, because I mean, if you look at the survey respondents, 41% of them said they already have basic AI capabilities in terms of their outsourcing partner. 37% said they had advanced capabilities. So everyone in the outsourcing space is working on or working with AI as part of their solution offering. In the space, using AI and outsourcing in general is not a differentiator. It's pretty commonplace within the industry and as well as within the clients themselves. They're trying it as well. What's interesting to me is that we're going to keep seeing AI grow. And this trend that focus on AI, it becomes really nuanced when we're talking about being a strategic partner with a client. Because what's going to happen, and you're going to see this start to happen in AI, is that the idea that outsourcing in general is really, it's a talent, it's a people play. You're talking about bringing teams of people to a strategic goal of a company and applying that resource towards that goal. AI all of a sudden adds this tech level to it. And so it will be striking a balance between people and AI, meaning that the idea of human in the loop, that idea that if you're talking about customer experience specifically, that idea that you can provide better customer experience by having people and AI working together and collaboratively around finding and solving client problems. What I get excited about, especially when it comes to AI, is that it allows us to become a better strategic partner as an outsourcer, where outsourcers shouldn't be thinking of it as like, oh, I'm just going to throw a bunch of AI at this thing to make me better. It should be like, how and in what ways are we improving the client's strategy by applying AI technology to it? And it will do all kinds of incredible things. I mean, we see it right now. It's SupportNinja where, we implement AI technologies that are customized to the specific client. But what we're seeing is that if you apply AI to a customer experience that's strategically aligned to the client's goals, it's actually improving customer experience, for the client, meaning that their customers are getting a better experience. It's aligned really well strategically as a tech play. And then further, it actually is improving the work that the agents, the people doing the work are doing every single day. And so I think AI and outsourcing, this is a sea change for a lot of folks in the way in which we're working. But to me, it's not as drastic of a sea change as if you look at it as a partner in strategic alignment with your client's growth.
Well, that's a lot to chew on there. It really does seem like outsourcing is really shifting into a whole new territory over the course of this year. And as I say, I mean, we're already in June as of the time of this recording. So some of these are already becoming quite true that we've seen over the course of the last 6 months. But Craig, thank you so much for joining us today to talk about these trend predictions and these findings that we've discovered over the course of this massive survey that we've sent out to over 480 industry leaders. As always, Craig, thank you so much for your time and your information.
Always a pleasure to chat, Jack.
Well, y'all, thank you for watching and listening. There's more to come, so be sure to stay connected with SupportNinja on LinkedIn. And to learn even more about what we talked about today, check out the blog that this episode was adapted from, linked in the post of this video. I'm your host, Jack Malacco, and we'll see you in the next one.